I'm hopeful that'll allow him to start putting together a team around him that I don't think is really done yet. And I'm sure there are people that maybe didn't want to come and work for a guy that may only have that job for 6 more months or a year. Now they know he's going to be there for 4 years. So I think it gives him a great opportunity to almost start with a clean slate in some ways, and to learn from his mistakes. I mean, we all make mistakes, and hopefully we all grow, and hopefully he'll grow and he'll learn, that maybe some of the things he did the first 2 years, maybe he ought to do different. And now he's got a great chance to do them different. And as I said, I'm hopeful. I'm very hopeful that he'll be successful. We all have a lot vested in a governor doing well in this state, and regardless of his politics. So I'm hopeful that those 2 years that I thought were pretty rough, and he made some mistakes, but that's a learning period, and he can take that learning experience and be a better governor.
You made some statements on his behalf, I guess, a couple of years ago in favor of a tax increase. Do you see getting involved in that at all, again, if he's going forward?
Well, no, I said I thought he was courageous to do, and I think it's one of the things you got to look at. You've got to look at cuts, and I just think he's got to sit back and put together a comprehensive program. It can't be piecemeal, and I think he needs to, and I think he needs to get a staff, maybe a little more, few people and deeper than he has right now, and start putting together a plan, an overall plan. I'd be happy to support an overall plan that includes cutting, and you can have tax increases. It's probably going to have to be a long term. He's going to have to learn to say no. I mean, that's not something. I mean, he created a lot of new programs in the last 2 years. Now, I've been there. I understand part of that's political. He doesn't have to worry about that now. He's governor. He's got 4 years. And if he wants to run again, it's all going to be determined, does he solve this financial mess, I think. And now it's his mess. It's no longer Blagojevich's mess. And I think a lot of people maybe were willing to give him a little bit of the benefit of the doubt. But now whatever happens, it's on his watch. And so that's one of the reasons I think that he needs to step back before he makes any pronouncements and think out the long term. And we'll see. I hope, again, he has a great opportunity now, because most of us don't get to be governor and had any experience being governor. In a way, he had a chance for 2 years to be governor. Now he can take that experience, and I think if he learns from his past, I think he can be a much better governor.
Governor, you indicated that Tom Cross may be the roadblock if Mike Madigan doesn't want to put his members on a tax increase.
No, I'm not saying Tom Cross is the roadblock. I'm saying that if Mike Madigan wants Republicans, and that's an issue where a lot of members don't leave their caucus, or they don't leave it unless they have told you can vote your conscience. So I don't blame Tom Cross on this. I think it's kind of Mike Madigan's corner how he handles Tom Cross and the House Republicans. It's going to be very important if he wants their involvement in trying to deal with this budget problem.
But you seem to be saying we need, at least as part of the package, a tax increase, so you're saying there probably need to be some Republican votes on it.
Well, that's my sense. They lost, the Democrats did lose some seats, so they're going to have probably fewer seats or members that maybe they can get on. They're going to have the bulk. I'm not sure, though, Madigan's attitude, and I understand that he's going to want to pass it with just Democratic votes. I mean, he'd have to get almost every Democrat.
So are you going to encourage some Republican members to vote?
I'm not going to encourage anybody. I'm going to encourage Democrats and Republicans to sit down and try to get along. That's what I want to see happen. I think if that happens, then I'm much more optimistic that they'll figure out some compromise. I've always thought that if you get the two parties to sit down and reach a consensus or a compromise, that's a far better solution than one party trying to ram it through.
How does that happen given the Rancor, though? They ran these billboards in the...
Well, when I first came down here, there's an old saying, don't take it personal, it's all business. And we've got to get back to where it's business, it's not personal. And, when I was governor, I don't think the 4 legislative leaders necessarily thought I was the greatest thing since sliced bread. And, but in the end, after we fought out for a while, we all knew we had to sit down and compromise. And some way we've got to get that needs to come back in Springfield, where everybody knows that, all right, we don't agree, and, we don't maybe like the other guy, but we're here to solve problems. We're here to get the job done, and that's what they're going to have to concentrate on, not on personalities.
Do you think that the fact that Quinn was elected gives him the necessary leverage to pass the tax hike?
I think the fact that he was elected and he was in favor of an income tax increase makes it a lot easier for members to vote for a tax increase and not think it's going to defeat them in the next election. And they can also rationalize there was a referendum, as they did back when I got elected and we had to make the temporary permanent. A lot of guys rationalized, well, that was a referendum on this issue. But I don't think it's a guarantee, and I think it would be a mistake if that's all he does on this budget. I mean, it would take a lot more than just a tax increase to solve this budget problem, and I think that probably going to be part of it. But it's not even, I don't think, the major part of it. I think you got to get spending under control, and you got to make some changes, and probably you're going to have to cut back on some programs, and you're going to have to stop creating new programs for a while, because we're not going to be able to tax our way out of this problem. Because if that's all we do, then we're going to be right back in this problem in a year or two. It's not going to get solved just with a tax increase.
You spoke about mistakes that Quinn made in his first round. What, if you're talking to him, what would you say? Top 3 mistakes. What did he really do wrong?
Let me tell you what I think he needs to do. And I won't. The most important thing is still he needs to put a team around him of his people, competent people. And I'm not talking 4 or 5. I'm talking 40 or 50 people.
Is it now the issue that there's not enough, or that the ones that are there aren't good enough?
Well, I'm not sure he ever put his team. He had a lot of holdovers, and I'm not sure that was a very good group of people to have, and so he also needs to look at a broad, comprehensive way to get us out of this budget mess. You can't just say I'm going to do a tax increase. I'm going to do that. You've got to put it all together in a package. Then you got to stick with it. So the other thing he needs to, before he makes any pronouncements, think long and hard, and maybe check around and just kind of know how people are going to react. Because sometimes I think he would say things and people would react and he'd be surprised and he'd change. You don't want to keep changing your position. So staff, you need to have a comprehensive program and you need to stick with it. You need to not necessarily be stubborn, but you got to know, everybody needs to know that you're committed to this. You're not going to change your mind in 2 days, and you might have to, everybody have to wait a month or 2 until you finally understand that's what the governor means to do. But again, he has now that luxury of experience that most people coming in the governor's office don't have. And so I just hope he'll, try to sit back and what can I learn from what I've been through the last 2 years. And maybe I did make a mistake here or there. That's a hard thing for any politician to ever say I might have made a mistake. And I'm not saying he ought to say it publicly, but he ought to just sit back and, because he made a few. We all make a few.
Governor, what's your reaction to the Republicans picking up 4 congressional seats and to the Tea Party movement in Illinois?
Well, I don't think the Tea Party movement in Illinois was as much of a factor as it was in some other states. The Tea Party impact seems to be pretty much in the primaries. I don't think there is much of a factor in a general election. In fact, in some cases, some of the people they got nominated turned out not to be as good in other states in the general election. But I think the Republicans, the 4 candidates that won, 3 of those are basically Republican districts that we probably should have never lost. The one exception might be the Quad City district, but with the change in politics downstate and becoming more Republican, I think that district probably should have changed even before now. But those other 3 suburban districts should have never gone Democrat to start with. So that's, I think, part. I don't think it was so much a revolt as it was, people just, this year was the Republican year, and those are Republican districts. The one that was interesting was not the one we picked up, but the one we held, and that was Mark Kirk's old district, where Bob Dole won. And that district is a Democratic district. That's probably the most Democratic district of all those by far, more so than even the Quad City. And the fact we held on to that, I thought, again, underscored this was a Republican year in Illinois, because that district, now, if Bob Dole had been an incumbent, you could kind of explain it for that, but he was a new face running against somebody who had run 3 times and come very close to Mark Kirk on a couple of those times he'd run before. So that underscored to me this was a Republican year, because that's a Democratic district. As I said, the other suburban ones, I think they should have been Republican, and this year we got them back. I think most people feel that we had we had good candidates. Now, I think the Melissa Beam was a surprise, but it's not a surprise if you look at that district. That's a very Republican district. Just that, I think they were surprised this guy who nobody really knew much about, and she had done a pretty good job of ingratiating herself to the business community that she was able to. They thought she'd hold on. But again, it was such a Republican year, I think. So the Tea Party, I don't have, next time if they're still around and they're an independent factor, maybe they might have more of an impact in a primary, but it didn't seem to me they had much of an impact in this primary in Illinois like in other states.
Do you have any reaction to the State Board of Elections holding up certification of Mark Kirk until November 23 when the U.S. Senate's coming in on the lame duck section on the 15th of November?
What's the reason?
They scheduled their meeting on the 23rd. I really don't know the reason why.
That's too bad. I mean, that we should get that. We should get an elected senator in there as soon as we could. Yeah, I don't know if the Senate's going to do anything in those few days anyway. They might, maybe.
The remap will be looming over budget negotiations. How do you see it playing in as a factor? Do you think that it'll be used as a bargaining chip at all, or do you think it's a foregone conclusion that the Democrats are just going to draw?
Well, the Democrats are going to draw the map the way they want to. Now, the question is, will they tell some Republicans, if you vote with us on some of these things, we might take care of your district? That's the unknown out there. One thing you got to remember, to make a map very Democratic, that means you got to put all those Republican votes in a Republican district. So there could be some Republicans who could come out with a real good district, too good, and that's why you can't elect Republicans in other districts. But who knows what might happen? But it's going to be a Democratic map. If they'd have had a one-vote margin, it'd have been a Democrat. I mean, that is the most basic thing in the legislature. That's all that's what they care about the most. That's why those Democrat legislators are out trying to help Pat Quinn win. It wasn't because they love Pat Quinn. They wanted a Democratic governor to sign their map.
But might
Is
it
Quinn
be
kind of a wild card, though, in that sense, in that he's been asking for this tax increase and Madigan won't give it to him? Does he use that as leverage with the speaker?
Now, I've been surprised before, but I would be shocked if he would veto a Democratic-passed redistricting map.
But might deciding who's going to be in those strong Republican districts be a way to maybe break Cross's hold on his caucus right now?
That's a possibility. I'm not sure it'll work, but that might be, a possibility that might be tried. But I mean, that again. You asked me, will there be any Republicans have any? That might be only way they're going to have any input. If for some reason the Democrats come and say, well, we can work on your district, but you got to vote on this. I have never actually seen that happen because I've never been in a situation in all my years. I've been involved and watched this where one party had control in the legislature on the redistricting. There's always been a split in Illinois government. Now, if it goes to the commission, it's after the legislative session. Now, I do know in the past, I know of Republicans, this is years ago, who talked with people in control of the redistricting and the Democrats to try to get things done. But it's never happened during a legislative session because I said we've always had split government. So this is a first time. But that is a possibility. That's how I doubt it. Out of the kindness of their hearts, they're going to call up a Republican and say, hey, we want to draw the district so you're happy. They might say that and say, oh, by the way, we have a bill we'd sure like your support on.